Here is part 2 of how I'm getting on with my streak. So if you want to watch last week's video, that is an introduction to why I'm doing a streak. I'm so excited to share what I've learned this week with you. Before we get into it, I really want to talk about how I think I'm going to be making some changes when it comes to my YouTube and my Patreon. I have like 53 podcast episodes now on Patreon, and they together, looking at the collection, I've really made a starter kit for kind of beginner illustrators and people who really want to start a small business but don't really know where to start. And those podcast episodes are available for you to access for just £1 a month, which is very cheap. I really wanted to create a bunch of resources that were accessible for someone like me that super struggled with money early on. So I've got like 53 podcast episodes that are perfect for kind of beginners and people that don't really know how to start setting up their small business and how to make money from illustration. And I think the new Patreon podcasts, which are kind of going in deeper for people that are already starting their small business, maybe doing it for a few years and just want to keep up the momentum and keep learning and keep growing and keep maximizing themselves. Like the topics that are coming out on my Patreon, it just makes sense to put the new episodes from now on onto the higher tier. And then I'm also creating a resources page. It's going to include all my contracts, invoices, like paperwork and things you need to look out for will be on the highest tier as well. So it just means that you have a one-stop shop for everything you need and you can dip in and out of it as you wish. So the resource that I wish that I had starting out, and I hope to add onto it as time progresses. But here is a view of the landing page and all the resources that are available. But if you are a beginner and you are literally really need to figure out where to start, the Patreon podcasts, I put them in a massive list so you can access all of these Patreon podcasts for £1 a month only, and it gives you a massive breadth of knowledge for people that really need it. And then almost like when you graduate from that level, the next tier is for you, and all the info for that will be in the description. And I always try and make content for my Patreons first and foremost. So if there is something that you're struggling with right now in your business, please head over to my Patreon. If you're a patron, please let me know what you're struggling with, as I'm trying to build all the content for you guys. A massive thank you to my patrons who have supported me, whether you've supported me for a month or whether you're an OG and you're still here. Massive thank you from my heart. I cannot make these videos without you. And let's get right on into this creative challenge. Day 1 started as soon as I hit publish on that video. I think I got invited to the pub and I was like, I'm not going to go to the pub. I'm going to work my personal work. I just gave myself 45 minutes at the end of the day. I found a really old project that was collecting dust that never went anywhere, and I got my hard drive. It was like I had to remember what this project was about, and I spent 45 minutes in that project and then just went to the pub later. And I think that is the new Natalie Byrne, Natalie Byrne 2.0, working on figuring out time to work on things that matter to me and are meaningful to me, while also having balance in my life. And also I have this playlist that I really want to share with you. I think I find it so important, especially when I'm writing, and more so when I'm drawing as well. Usually when I'm drawing, I'm listening to audiobooks, but when I'm writing, I can't have anything without words, no music with lyrics at all. And I made a happy hyperfixation playlist where it kind of is a mixture of classical songs and binaural beats. And I have been adding songs to that for quite a while, and I do find that playlist just really helps me get into the groove of the focus. So I'll leave that linked below on my Spotify if you're interested. So day 2 and day 3 was over the weekend. I am so sweaty. We are currently doing Project Garden. I have found the trick to doing a little bit of work on my personal projects on the weekend with like the minimalist amount of effort. There were a few times, like, because we've got the dogs, if one of us is in the car and we need to like pop to the shop, like someone has to stay in the car for the dogs, I pull out my phone and just go into my notes and just start writing on these personal projects, because I've realised, like, actually before I start drawing anything, one of the things I really needed was like some writing of a specific scene that I'm trying to draw. Some character like names, some character like descriptions of the location, the notes app on my phone. It means it's also available like across devices, which I love. Yeah, I was getting to the point on the Saturday, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't actually done any work on my personal project today. I'm gonna ruin my streak on the first day. It did mean that I was able to kind of work on my personal projects for just like those few minutes that I was in the car. It's so funny because I think, like, on the weekend I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to sit at my desk at some point, I'm gonna have to like get my iPad out, I'm gonna have to get my notebook out and get all of these things out that I need during the week to work. And actually doing it that way has just been like the aha, like the key to doing this even on a weekend, because I'm very strict now about like relaxing on the weekend. I managed to keep up the momentum of working on my personal projects with a very low amount of effort. I feel like I still was able to like completely switch off on the weekend. So day 4 was Monday. I started listening to this book, The War of Art, over the weekend by Steven Presfield. It is a game changer. I think the book I found is available on YouTube. I don't know if it still will be. But he talks about how so often so many creative people will hit some sort of resistance, whether that's procrastination or feeling like you're not good enough, or feeling like the idea is not good enough, or even a rejection from a gatekeeper, and will put the idea to bed thinking this is just going to die here and I'm not going to continue because I don't believe in myself. He talks about how often when you are on the right path and when you know line with what your soul needs to actually create on this earth is when you are going to feel the most resistance for it. So day 3 was a Tuesday. And again, I was listening to Steven Presfield on a podcast with Tim Ferriss in the morning. And he said how you should never have breaks in between books if you're a writer. You should always be continuing, like get right back into starting another one. And he says that actually leaving big breaks in between projects is when a lot of people can get in their head. They start to like overthink, they start to have all those self-doubts. And he said how important it is to just continue that momentum, continue that creative practice, continue that daily habit of always showing up.
So I'm definitely a believer that by the time I finish one book, well, let me put it a different way. As I'm coming towards, say, the last 6 months on a book, I want to be starting the next book simultaneously, even if it's only notes, you know, so that when I do, like Paul Rink said to me, start the next one tomorrow, you know, or today, because it's so hard to do that, and resistance is so hard, you got to just keep going.
I have noticed that because I find with my writing, the more out of habit I am, the harder it is. It's like anything, like when you have a break from anything, it's hard to get back into it. And I've noticed that with my writing 100%. You have to show up, and it's the reason why it's called a creative practice. It's because it is not a hobby. It is not something that you just do when the muse hits you. It is something that you are practicing all the time. The next day I went into my office, so it's just so easy to I am always so focused when I go to my office. I think it's just like being in an environment where everyone's working, obviously having my screen like very visible for everyone to see. I've been starting the day with my emails every single day. Thanks, Red. I did some emails and then I did some sketches for a client, and then I had like 20 minutes before a call, and so I used those 20 minutes to kind of draw on these personal projects. So on Thursday I actually had like some available time come up because I had a client that pulled out and rescheduled their potential project. So I was like, right, this has not gone to plan. I'm quite busy in May, but it looks like from the end of April I actually have a lot more time than I thought I was going to have. Now that I have more time than I originally thought, by Friday I'm going to put a little imposed deadline on myself to finish one of these personal projects. On the weekend I spent time on my fiction book idea. On the Monday I spent time on the non-fiction book idea. Great angle. I've got you with the washing basket. Up the stairs we go. Come on. I created some illustrations for like a fake mock-up self-directed brief where you kind of choose a brand and choose an idea where your work would fit and do like a whole case study and a whole project. Reverse engineer your dream career by doing these kinds of projects. I think it's an amazing way to show brands that your work would suit in that scope of like industry. And I haven't ever done anything like that. Basically, long story short, one of my goals is to do packaging, and so always in the back of my mind was like, I should probably do one of these projects because I've never really done packaging before in the way that I see it would work so well for me. So I have, a while ago, I actually created some illustrations on this project with this project in mind that never went anywhere. And I really want to put them in like a case study for why Natalie Byrne's illustrations would work so well. And I kind of need to go back and like write like why I would be a great fit for this brand, why me? This question I've been asking my whole life. I find that professional writing is like quite hard. It isn't just like my diary writing on Instagram where I'm like, my thoughts and feelings on this. To write copy that sounds like it should be in a case study, kind of explaining like intricacies of why I'm doing what I'm doing, is something I haven't done for a long time. And that brings us to Friday, which is today. And I've spent longer than I thought I needed to writing. I'm still writing like this deck and this case study. I'm actually doing it on diversity, and I've chosen a brand that I love and that I love. Basically, it's an alcohol brand that I love, that I just think that they just need a bit more diversity and inclusion and equality in like their brand messaging. And it turns out I have a lot to say on diversity and inclusion. I will, when I'm finished, which is today, because the deadline for that is going to be today, I'm going to upload it onto my Patreon. But it's really interesting because I think at the beginning of this week, on the first day, I was showing up and I didn't really know what I wanted to actually finish the week with. It's interesting because I think it's really hard to show up for your creative projects when you kind of don't really know what they are yet. And that's the beginning of this week for me. It was like, right, I'm just going to look and revisit these old personal projects and just like see which one I'm kind of drawn to the most. What is the outcome that I want from each of these personal projects, and which one do I like really need to be done like soon and it's going to be the most like beneficial for me overall. And so I realized that I think doing this kind of brand mock-up project, it was going to like benefit me the most, because like that was my biggest goal for the last like this year and also last year, was to work with brands and in industries that I've never worked with before, like alcohol. Right, so thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for being here. If you want more creative tips and advice, all of that is on my Patreon. Bye. You're a gorgeous boy, eh? You're a gorgeous boy. Want to say anything to the people?